Hi, guys, and welcome to another episode of Wealth Waves, where we take a look at all things business and trading related. Today, I'm joined by Charlie Charalambous, and he's part of the CMTrading Partners Hub, and we're going to discuss all things to help you become, I guess, a better you in business. How are you doing today, Charlie?
I'm very well. Thank you, Sergio. How are you today?
Awesome, awesome. I can't complain. It's finally spring. You're down in South Africa. So,
Yes.
yeah, after heavy rains, I'm not sure how it is in your part of the world, but I, for one, am
Um,
glad there's sun.
we're approaching November, and it must be about 29 degrees. So we're
Wow,
technically
wait,
speaking in
isn't that
autumn.
your winter?
That's all. Yes, it's 29
Oh,
degrees over here.
wow.
So it's still t-shirt and shorts weather, which is great.
Oh, wow.
Um, so if you want to know why, after 50 odd years living in London, I left,
Yeah.
well, there's your answer.
Awesome, awesome. So, Charlie, I thought today we could discuss the topic of leadership. Unless you're at the top, it's not one you might, consider, and it's critical for almost every aspect of our lives. A good leader can make or break a company. And we've all been around the water cooler grumbling about, poor leadership of our then and maybe current bosses.
Yeah.
So I thought we kick things off by talking about the Forbes most innovative leaders list. So I mean there's about 100 of them, but I'll run through the first five.
Okay.
Unsurprisingly, we've got number
You,
one, we've got Jeff Bezos.
okay. You're going to
Uh,
test me about these guys, right?
well, look, we can get into how controversial they are as people, but there's
Yeah.
no denying that every single person on this list has shaped the business world um, just through sheer gravitas.
Yeah.
So we've got Jeff Bezos number one, Elon Musk number two, Mark Zuckerberg, Mark Benioff from
Yep.
Salesforce.com, and finally number five we've got Reed Hastings of Netflix.
Can I ask you a
So,
question,
yep,
Sergio? Sorry to interrupt.
go for it.
Um, are they saying, therefore, that leadership is directly related and correlated to how wealthy you are?
Well, you see, this is the thing. And I mean, I'm glad we're having this topic because on their list, they listed top stats as in 12 months sales growth and company innovation premium, which is an index that, Forbes has. But, it doesn't really tell you, what makes a good leader. And
Hmm.
that's what we should be unpacking. What makes
I
a good
totally
leader,
agree.
Charlie?
Where do I start? Look, I think um, something you said earlier on, leadership is, there's a line out of Braveheart, which I love if you've ever watched the movie with Mel
Oh, yeah.
Gibson,
Yeah,
where it said that leaders don't follow titles, they follow courage.
yeah.
And what
Okay.
is it to be courageous? Leadership is something that most people at some point will do throughout their lives. A parent is a leader to their
Yeah,
children.
yeah.
A teacher is a leader to the children in their classroom.
Mm,
Someone in business, someone in a sporting environment, whether you're a captain of your club or the manager of that team. Leadership comes across in many guises, which is why my first question was, have they listed the top 100 leaders, Forbes, by correlated to how much they're worth? Because I don't think just because you're wealthy that our, leaders in terms of leading people, which is what we want to talk about, or
yeah,
setting an example, that doesn't necessarily mean because you're wealthy, you're a good leader. It's at certain aspects of your
yeah,
life. You're in a way, and maybe I'm answering the question, you're taking that step forward. So if you want to talk about, and we talk about in business, and how to lead a business, then we're happy to focus just specifically on that rather than what makes Bezos a good leader. I don't know Bezos. Don't know what his values are. I don't know what his belief systems are. So therefore,
yeah.
he's led his business well. But
yeah. And I mean, look, in terms of if you were just, doing this on pure accounting, then yes, successful leader worth $1 trillion, fine. But you mentioned, courage.
Yeah.
And one leader that stands out for me was Steve Jobs. I don't think a lot of people realize that Apple wasn't always the $1 trillion company that it is today.
No,
and
it wasn't.
In fact, I think about 12 years ago, they were in very big danger of, collapsing. And I remember a story about, the then great Steve Jobs, where, he was trying to develop, they were on the verge of developing the first tablet. And he took an Apple Mac laptop, snapped off the bit that has, the keyboard, and just kept the screen and said to his engineers, I want this and only this.
Yep.
No keyboard, nothing. Make this into the laptop. And about 8 months later, we had the first Apple iPad. And let's face it, it takes a hell of a lot of courage to do something like that.
100%.
Just imagine in a boardroom to do something as outlandish like that. But I'm pretty sure the second Steve left that boardroom, they were on it. His workers were motivated. They had a plan of action, doing something radical that never been done before. Sure.
As you're talking, do you know what it makes me think? You've got to have a degree of crazy in you. What people perceive as crazy in order to lead an organization like Steve Jobs just did. And I think there's probably something crazy about all of these people, like Elon Musk and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah,
because the courage that we're talking about here is thinking outside the box and more importantly, not backing down and having the courage to stick out away from what's conceived as normal. And I think all these people are not prepared to be normal. They know that in order to be different, everybody thinks they're different, but everybody conforms. The last 3 years will tell you that people have conformed to what they're told by whether it's media or government. Okay, and therefore people are considered to be outliers. The people that think differently and are not prepared to do something. They too are leaders, by the way. And I think in business, Steve Jobs is a classic example. I saw, interestingly enough, a few weeks ago, one of his marketing campaigns back in the mid-90s, where he was talking about his organization and branding and taking it into a different direction. It's very brave. It took courage to scrap what they'd done previously and think outside the box. And I think, in terms of jobs, in terms of all these people, as a leader, your job is one thing. It's to get people to buy into your vision.
Yeah.
That's what a leader does. It's to get people to buy into your vision. But in order for them to follow you, by definition, because leaders have followers, okay, you've got to have that vision. And that vision is driven by lots of different things. And that's what I mean. It's not financial. Money for me, I've always believed, is not a money motivator. Correct.
Of a good vision.
Correct.
But just on, with courage. I mean, 3 years ago, COVID hit.
Yeah.
And if you had told me that freelancing, starting your own business would not only become more appealing and more secure than your traditional 9 to 5, but that it would actually replace, to a certain degree, the 9 to 5, in that people would be working remotely from home, I would never have believed you. Even at the start of 2020, no way was that happening, because we all know, we get told, even as kids today, the kids today get told, have a secure 9 to 5, secure your pension, have an office job. That is success, right?
Conditioning.
Whereas, yes, condition.
It's
Whereas,
conditioning.
if you think about all these people, these innovators, all of them had the courage to, execute their vision. And it takes an immense amount of courage to become your own boss, to try and become, financially independent. That takes courage. And the sheer amount of freelancing
Yeah.
and, ways of people trying to generate additional income, today is amazing to see.
These people are called outliers, in a way. And I don't know if that came around as a result of the famous Malcolm Gladwell book that defined them as outliers. But ultimately,
Yeah.
all these people that we've spoken about are outliers. And I think, we talked about money and leadership. I think if you look in the sporting world, we're not doing so well now. Probably exactly why. I'm a Manchester United fan. And, I had happy times for 26 years with Sir Alex. Yeah, for the last 10 years. But what happened? But this is interesting. It was the vision of and the mentality and the will to win of arguably the greatest British football manager that's ever existed, Sir Alex Ferguson, that created what we now see dying in a way. And the fundamental difference between then and now is one person, and that desire
and that
to
person's
win.
Vision.
And that person's vision. I want to knock that team down the road off their perch. That was his vision. And and he achieved it because his relentless drive to succeed. And let's go back to that, because we talk about courage. What is courage? We talked about conditioning.
Right.
Here's the first step: is to accept that the environment that you're in conditions you to act a certain way.
Yeah.
And human beings, deep rooted, if you look at behavioral science, are driven to make decisions based on the way they think about certain things, and fear and desire. So you mentioned COVID, and you mentioned that for some people they have no choice. Having no choice is driven by fear, rather than desire. Because if it wasn't for the environment that we've been in for the last 3 years, i.e., COVID and less jobs and whatever, maybe people would have been comfortable, and that's another interesting word, comfortable, to continue in their environment that they are, and are not prepared to make the decisions that they've made over the last 3 years in order to work for themselves. And that's what I'm talking about. Because if you look at human beings in general, I believe there's a statistic out there that says decisions made through fear are 7 times more powerful, or 8 times more powerful than those made purely from desire. People always think that I want this, I want a nice car, and I want a nice house, and I want I want a good education for my children, etc., etc. And people think, I want to do this, but everybody has an equal opportunity out there, and the opportunity is that anybody out there, irrespective of their environment, can make decisions today to work for themselves, and the success that they achieve is driven by what they do. But ultimately, what I'm saying is, when people are given no choice, that fear of loss and that fear of not having and whatever is a much more powerful driver than that fear of success, which everybody tells you is correlated to money, and it's got nothing to do with that. Which is why being a good father or being a good mother to a child is a leadership quality. Now, so let me go back and let me tell you where I'm going with this. How do you overcome fear? If your desire not to lose, because it's 8 times more powerful, is greater than your fear of your obstacle to achieve that, then you will take action. If your fear of the obstacle, the fear of failure, is greater than your desire not to fail anyway, then you won't take action. So what I'm trying to say is, if now you can deprogram the way you think to think, actually, me where I am today, where I'm totally reliant on my employer for my lifestyle, my financial security, ultimately where I live, what car I drive, how I educate my children, and if you're being totally, really deep thinking, the types of relationships and who I end up marrying, or et cetera, et cetera. If you look at that as a whole, okay, and realize that having someone else control you is something that you don't want, that's what leads you to having the desire and courage to know that there's no other option but to work for yourself. And all that 100 list that we've talked about, and I never want to talk about money, but the one thing that they've all done is, as outliers, is made the conscious decision that working for someone else is not acceptable. And even if you are working for someone else, it doesn't mean that you have to give up your day job. But going back full circle then to what we're talking about today, it's the opportunity to start your own business, no capital required or no experience necessary. And whether you decide to do that is purely based on, am I prepared not to accept someone else dictating the quality of my life? And if you can answer that question, then you can make that decision.
Yeah, I think you're spot on about that. And for, listeners out there who aren't familiar with the partner program, what is it and what does it entail?
It's very simple. As I described, it's an opportunity, which is different to a job. A job, you go to work on a contract, you perform certain activity that the company wants you to perform, and in return they pay you. And more often than not very well. An opportunity is whereby you are your own boss, you work for yourself, and your outcome is direct related to the input that you put into it. So that's what an opportunity is.
Yeah.
It's unlimited. It's meritocratic in the sense that your status is purely defined by the amount of work that you put in. So it's an opportunity for anybody, because anybody can do it, with no experience, no capital required, to have, an opportunity to market your business to your social community, your social contacts, in return for payment, but not a lump sum payment, in return for a consistent revenue stream related to how many people you introduce to our company. So it's an introducing business. That's why they call it an introducer. You bring clients to us, they invest and trade. In return, we will pay you a share of the revenue that's generated from their trading activity, and it's ongoing. Hence the reason why we call it rev share.
And on that note, do you have any advice for anyone out there, still desperately thinking about job security, how am I going to pay the bills? How can I get additional income? Do you have any advice to give them the courage it takes to, try and gain financial independence?
Take action. As I mentioned earlier on,
it's such a simple thing, but it is so hard for a lot of people to let go. Taking that first step. It's scary.
It is, but as I said, what's more scary is that you've been walked into a room and saying actually the company's taken a different direction, or your role is no longer available because of whatever reason, like AI, for example. There's a topic.
Yeah. Big disruptor.
And if you're in that, because no one out there, no one cares that you've got bills. No one cares that you've got children to bring up. No one cares that you've got to put food on the plate. They don't care.
True.
The only person that really cares is you. So therefore, if you care that much, you've got two options. You've got a decision. By the way, in Latin, decision means to cut off. That's what it actually means, and that's what decisions are all about. Is to cut off all other possibilities. So if you don't, because it's negative motivation that we're talking about, if you don't want the position whereby you lose that security, supposed security of a monthly paycheck, a salary, okay, the only way you can make yourself financially independent is to have an additional, at least one additional form of income that
Yeah.
you control. Okay?
Yeah.
And so therefore, it's at what point do you want, therefore, to be in a position whereby you're not reliant upon your paycheck for your financial security? And if that decision, to make that decision, is you want that security now, you've got to take action now.
And on that note,
So
I
it's
think
driven
we'll
by
leave it.
fear.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
driven by fear.
I
Yeah.
think a fear is probably a good one for another topic, because
Yeah.
it is so critical and so debilitating. I don't think people realize it. And sadly, bad leaders use fear, as a tool. You're
Yeah.
so afraid of losing
Powerful.
your job, you don't even bother thinking that, you've got way more value out there. So you just stay and you grind and grind until
Embrace
they
it.
might decide to get rid of you.
Embrace fear. It's amazing how people were being controlled over the last 3 years purely through that fear. And people have done things they won't ordinarily do. But in life in general, it's amazing what people will do through fear. Look at wars. Look at things that they've done to save someone or whatever it might be. That's all driven. It's a negative form of motivation. So therefore, the most important thing is you have a choice. You can choose. There are options. There are lots of affiliate programs and business opportunities out there. This is just one of many. But ultimately, as I said, we go back to it. The decision that you've got to make is: are you prepared to no longer take the paycheck that your employer gives you, okay, as the only form of security that you'll ever have? And if the answer is I'm not prepared to take that, and I want to make a choice, and I want that choice, I want to make a difference in my life, you've got to make that decision. You've got to cut off that possibility and then move on from there. But you don't need experience, and anybody can do it.
Awesome. I think on that note, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much, Charlie, for all your awesome advice.
It's all right. No more problem. A pleasure.
Cool. I'll see you on the next one, man.
Okay. Speak soon.
Okay, bye.